our reclamation for a long time, and one thing that we are also noticing is we are losing historical knowledge. We've lost three key management positions, unfortunately, and that easily equates to over 80 years of knowledge that we no longer have. This also goes to our federal and Navajo Nation partners. There's always that turnover that is occurring, and one of the good things about the Navajo AML program is staff have been here a long time. So that historical knowledge that we do have in place, we're able to share that continuously when we're cross-training or giving orientation to other Navajo Nation or federal agencies. So it's important that we are able to continue to share the information with other entities or stakeholders. But we are in need of following up on this interagency MOU with alternative funding, and with Navajo EPA, that's one avenue that we will continue to pursue. So the recommendations that we are making is that we do fully discuss this AUM fund management plan, and we are given direction on it being approved. When we're looking at some of the alternative fundings that are available through the Navajo CERCLA, we're looking at Navajo EPA's Hazardous Substance Fund, Natural and Cultural Resources Fund, and some of these other settlement agreements that they have through Tronics or Freeport McMoran or any of the other, what they call primary responsible parties that will be coming up. Then we always stress partnership, so the development of this AUM work group with proper resources to talk about the AUM problems on the Navajo Nation is one of the key things. So when you look at strategic planning, we are recommending the development of a Navajo Nation 5-year strategic plan. The 5 federal agencies that are supposed to be looking at Navajo Nation uranium impacts, they have what they call a 10-year strategic plan. So we're open to continuing to give our input into the development of the AUM issues on the Navajo Nation. So in closing, we've been working hard in terms of our program, developing the MOU, but also looking at this abandoned uranium mine fund management plan. And that basically covers the AUM fund management plan. We can lead into early discussions, or we can postpone, and I can get into the abandoned coal mines reclamation fund. Okay, I'll go ahead and continue with the abandoned coal mines reclamation fund. So going back to the Navajo AML program and our regulatory authority, which is the Surface Mining Control and Reclamation Act, I had touched that coal production on the Navajo Nation is dwindling down to less than 5 million tons per year. Our funding mechanism, when in the attachments, one of the charts was AML fund and the Treasury. So the federal government has an AML reclamation fund placed on the Navajo Nation coal mines, and it goes into the U.S. Treasury. The Office of Surface Mining is the one that gives the monies back to states and tribes across the U.S. So there's 32 states and tribes that are part of what's called the National Association of Abandoned Mine Lands program. Now, in the law, the surface mining law, it states that 50% will be used by the Office of Surface Mining for their operating and administrative costs, and the other 50% will go back to states and tribes. In 1994, Navajo AML became what's called a certified tribe, meaning we were done with all known coal problems. So that allowed us to do more work on the non-coal. But as I mentioned, we are just mainly dealing with abandoned coal mines right now. So one of our strategic plans going back a couple of years was knowing that the coal reserves or coal funding is going to be decreasing. What are some of the alternative funding mechanisms that might be out there? So knowing that the Navajo Transitional Energy Company purchased the ownership of 3 mines in Wyoming and Montana, we started discussing, would that be something that we would look into? So one of the main points of the Abandoned Coal Mine Lands Reclamation Fund is this is something that we're looking at long-term in terms of trying to identify new funding for our program. So Intech is actually playing with their 3 new mines. They're actually paying the states of Wyoming and Montana the AML reclamation fee. So the 3 mines that we're looking at produce over 80 million tons of coal in Montana and Wyoming. So what Navajo AML is looking at, and this is a big challenge, is how can we bring some of that money back to the Navajo Nation and to the Navajo AML program so that we can continue to supplement whatever dwindling funds we are looking at as a nation here. So the challenge would be, how are we going to approach INTEC or even the Office of Surface Mining so that we can try to identify some of these funds that INTEC is paying back to Wyoming and Montana. And when we look at AML challenges, we do not receive any general funds. And our overall operating cost exceeds $1.9 million. So when we look at AML funding through Navajo Mine, that's equivalent to almost $600,000. And I had mentioned we do work with Department of Energy under the UMTRA program. And currently that funding is only about $600,000. So when we're looking at our proposed costs that would supplement this coal fund management plan, we're looking at our administrative, our staffing, any technical. We have to always abide by the environmental policy laws, so we have to get clearances before we do any kind of ground disturbance. And then public relations is one of the big things where we're always trying to keep the public informed about what we're doing. But this also goes to any of our stakeholders or partners, whether or not it's the federal, state, or tribal levels. So without any alternative funding, one of the things that might come would be Navajo AML having to downsize, or as I had mentioned, we have lost staff to retirement. So there is a push to try and get some of these things in place so that we can continue to do cross-training, but also maybe start expanding with our program. So the recommendations for the Abandoned Coal Mine Lands Reclamation Fund was, in the fund management plan, we do specify 10 cents per ton that we would try to obtain from Intech. But one of the things we also target is trying to supplement our AML fund in the amount of $2 to $2.5 million. As I had mentioned, we don't have any agreements, or we have not approached Intech or or the Office of Surface Mining on this. This is where we would need direction and the support of the RDC, the council, in pursuing this. So with that, for the coal reclamation fund, that basically covers what we wanted to discuss and bring to your attention. If there's any follow-up information from the staff, feel free to add some comments.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Yazzie. Is that the completion of your presentation here?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Though, Ms. Pedoni, back to you. You have any other items to cover from your part, your end?
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair. I just would like to add that we are looking at a dire future as far as funding is concerned. We are strategically, we're looking at different options as far as funding is concerned. We're really wanting in to seek a secure funding, source of funding with annual allocations, perhaps through maybe even the general funds, considering that a lot of our activities, our funding is based on cooperative agreements. So these are funds that really, aren't, it's something that it's not secure each year. We're allocated different amounts based on need and how we've used the money. We really, do have a larger need than what's been allocated. So we're looking at these fund management plans to allow us to access other funds that are available out there as well. Thank you, Chair and committee members.
Are you mute? Okay, thank you, Ms. Donnie, Mr. Yazzie, for presenting the information on the two fund management plans for the department here. Before I turn it over to the committee, Dr. Shabala, Dr. Shabala. Are you still on the call, Dr. Shabala? Might be on mute, or he dropped off.
Vice Chair?
Yes.
Dr. Shabala is online. I'm not sure if he's near his computer, but he is on the call.
Okay. Shahid, committee members, the bench has neki question that kit. United doesn't hear committee members.
Mr. Vice Chair, this is Delegate Daniel.
Yes, Honorable Daniels, Che. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Kodo, Che, Kodo. The Kodo, the Senat, Seniki, Kodo, Sicilia, Seniki, Kodo, Delegate Stewart, Delegate Freeland, and the Che, so she, the Kodo Sena, Chairman Nez, the Che, Kodo, my chief from Tuba City. Delegate Otto So, the Chairman So, yeah, thank you for joining us today. Well, yeah, on this case, I'm just thinking back, way back in 1950s. That uranium in my region, the very old Jato, towards Denahoot, so around Old Jato, especially. There used to be mining back in the 50s, uranium mining. And to this day, some of those mines really needs to be cleaned up, and I see that not the day at the and the other day, the Freeport, McMoran, reached out to me. They're gonna do a presentation, and they're gonna update RDC January 5th. I just want to thank them as well. Put on the Freeport, McMoran, Liddell Davies, so talking about uranium mines. To this day, we're still dealing with these abandoned uranium mines. Just where I live, I would say about a quarter of a mile there used to be a mine, Firelight Mine. I think that around Old Jato, there's a Skyline mine that has been worked on, but people need to go back up there and recheck those areas. Or that echo, Aruna Kodona Great Monument number 2, the great Cane Valley area. That echoes, those were some of the big mines back then, back in the 50s. Monument number 2, Skyline Mine, Moonlight Mine. They're just around me. With those Moonlight Mine, Firelight Mine, they're just right there. That's where I live, Maggie. So, growing up, I grew up among these mines, the abandoned mines. So we used to crawl down those mine shafts. We used to check out those boards, those pipes that we used those as corrals. And it's still there. Corrals at the Bedalia. So ADK Kotona Great the Petrado Sat and that is the uranium mining. To this day, we can down the ground they credit. I don't know the health issues that I see the kid and Lenigi. But the Kodo moving forward, Kodo with EPA, AML, Kodo, Snaggy, Kodo. Thank you for your presentation, Kodo. I don't know in the area of funding. Great. Every year we allocate funds for the Navajo Nation. A very comprehensive budget that by Lana is there. And a very AML. Based on the year. So Kadeya right now, what I heard today, this morning, AML narrated the nation narrated that the 2 mines that were bought by Intech. Khalid based on Gita. Nahi Lato, Johatna, Loi, Babayati. So Oban, this case of Kodona Great, I would suggest that we or recommend that we do a joint meeting with RDC being the oversight, AML, and also Intech. It's not the need be it's not that oh gosh. So you know what I want this case to go. I don't know. I know that the needs out here, the issues out here at the level is still huge. Large, but then how it out here at the local. So it is at the neck with AML. But then that one the stone on the needs the store lessing or even yet neck with so He can't looking for funds that ben that on this ben not at all this so it is out ohans to has wait on this kodam na wait but he crashed at the bonnet not on this so he have got AML intake and also RDC so it ohans to has wait on this kodam Mr. Chair thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Daniels, Shichi. Bahenzi git ashin ban saha case study kodo. The quick sheet at the ticket na hadlen with the mines up in Wyoming or Montana off reservation, in another state. At the hot ehekita in the shiki e kodo Kong Bansi Kiss Johat Neko. A champion I did kiddo that. I did kiddo. Our bed has the dog fit out on Netigi. That's it on nature quite all. Hensi about Chimansi Kiss Kudo and committee members, comments, questions, the presentation here.
Jay. Delegate Freeland.
Jake, go ahead.
Good morning, colleagues and staff, as well as presenters. Thank you very much for that information and insight you provided. Shanata, I guess my thoughts on this fund management plan, and then just hearing the information that was represented again, is that there's a real critical need for funding, continuous funding for this program, and it's so important to the nation. And I think the nation, of course, is doing its best, but there's not enough resources coming from the federal government. How do we have the federal government step up and provide AML additional funding? If they're looking at other resources for revenue to just continue to operate, that's an issue. This is not a business. They're not a business. This is a program that is trying to, deal with abandoned mines and lands. It's like having scars almost, and they're trying to deal with that. There's still so many abandoned mines that need to be reclaimed still, and this fund management plan speaks to some of that, but it doesn't speak to all of it. And for myself, I think we really need to have a discussion with the trustees. And I don't know what the relationship is like with Navajo EPA or even the U.S. EPA, District 7, District 9. It doesn't seem like there's enough resources available for this program. So for myself, that's just how I see it. And, I think we need to do our best as RDC and committee members to continue to support this vital program to the Navajo Nation and, of course, to the people. And how are we going to hold the federal government accountable to this? And we got to start ringing that bell and telling them it's time for you to step up, federal government. It's time for you to start providing essential funding for this program. A lot of our programs are underfunded, yes, but when it comes to dealing with this and historically how these mines came about, it's really it's a telling story of what we went through, and I think we need to have the federal government remain have them do their due diligence as far as keeping them viable for funding. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Freeland, Honorable Freeland.
Can I make a response?
Mr. Yazzie?
No, this is Gilbert Daisy. Mr. Freeland,
Okay.
I'd like to make a comment.
Of course, can you hold,
The focus of the
can you hear me,
the focus.
Mr. Daisy?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, hold on. So, yeah.
Okay.
I hear someone in the background, one of the committee members or colleagues, someone called for my attention here. Auto social dinner? Yeah.
Oh,
Okay. Okay. Chairman Soshai, then we'll allow Mr. Daisy to also respond here.
oh yeah. I guess a lot of these, as you're talking about these fund management plans for these reclamations. I guess as these funds are being fund, it sounds like there's funds there, and you're gonna utilize some sort of dollars that is sitting there at this time, whether it's through UMTRA or any of the existing dollars that are there for the program. But what I'm getting to is that as Navajo moves forward to be the we're beginning to pick up the tab, and I'm going to allude back to Honorable Freeland's question pertaining to the to his question. How do we hold the federal government responsible for a lot of these things? Because a lot of it is for the federal government. Was a part of the discussion, especially with the uranium, and then we have the mines that are there pertaining to, these coal mine company. And what I'm going to allude to is at the time when the nation had approved these leases, and the small words the words that are printed in fine printed letters. What did the nation agree to those when they approved these leases pertaining to the reclamation and so forth? Because I'm assuming that the coal companies had a trust fund that they were acquiring funding to, setting monies to each year from a certain percentage of their revenue, and that goes for the uranium also. And the way I'm sort of understanding this is that those funds that are there for reclamation, we're gonna tap into those and utilize those dollars. Other than that, a lot of the reclamations or a lot of the mining is done, and there's no other dollars that we can put to for the reclamation efforts. So and I'm getting a sense that these are existing reclamation dollars that will be transferred to the nation, or is already transferred, and we just need to set the fund management plan to what you're alluding to. Reclamation. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman So, for the comment and some recommendations there. Mr. Daisy, apologize for cutting you off there. I tried my best to allow people time to speak. That it's sort of like a first come, first served. Whomever gets our attention here, but also committee members, they time Mikishi, we're also up against that. So this time, let me go back to Mr. Daisy. You may be on mute.
Okay, I'm back. This is Gilbert Daisy again. Mr. Freeland, I wanted to respond to the comments that you made. Dated, Melvin Yayash, Abandoned Uranium Mine Fund Management Plan, NOYAHATRI. The chief focus of that fund management plan is to get funding from Navajo EPA Superfund. They have a fund that's called Navajo EPA Hazardous Substance Fund and Natural Resources and Cultural Resources Fund. So that funding came from the Tronics settlements. I think the last time I heard it was about 32 million that's available that Navajo Nation can use towards any kind of problems that exist on Navajo. So obviously we have problems with abandoned mines that are eroding, abandoned uranium mines that are eroding, that we need to go in there, do some maintenance work, and take care of it. So you mentioned Skyline. Skyline is a real good example of what Navajo AML can do. Skyline was starting to erode. They have a repository full of uranium mine waste, and it was starting to erode. So in 2016, US EPA funded Navajo AML to do maintenance there. So we went up there in 2018, and we did complete recontouring and restabilizing that repository up there. So if you're ever free, we can show you that. So that's my response to your questions or your comments that you made, Mr. Freeland. Thank you. Melvin likes to speak next.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Daisy, for the comment there, though, the information. Mr. Yazi?
Okay, good morning again, and thank you. One of the things early on that I had emphasized is our work is under the Surface Mining Control and Reclamation Act, basically coming from coal funds, in what they call the reclamation deed. And we were able to address all these different type of minerals in terms of reclamation. And one of the key things that we need to keep in mind when our program talks about our activities, we're talking about reclamation. With the CERCLA law, which is under the U.S. and Navajo EPA, they are starting to talk about remediation. So one of the huge benefits from Navajo AML, we were able to go out and do what we call an inventory. We've documented the mine site locations, and this information we have shared with both U.S. and Navajo EPA. They've actually used some of our, what we call GIS database in some of their litigation to come up with these settlements. So the Tronic settlement, Freeport McMoran, a lot of those settlements are based off of the GIS our GIS inventory on where these mines were located. So we've shared that with them. And so under CERCLA, their task now is to do remediation. So when we are looking at remediation, they are going in full detail and doing different type of surveys to find out what the health and environmental impacts of the mine sites are. And that's where we would like to continue to provide our assistance to them in giving them recommendations and just basically showing them where these mine sites are located. I had mentioned the turnover in both staff, both agencies. So they're bringing in new people, and we've been able to show them a few sites, but there's a lot of, their stats, they use over 500 AUM sites. And they wouldn't know where all these sites were located if we didn't provide information to them. So what we're targeting is as alternative funding so that we can continue to show them and what we call cross-training and education with them so that they can continue to know where these sites are located and they're under different terrains. If you were to go from Cameron up into Monument Valley, into Cove, to Red Mesa area, the mining types are all different. So that's something that they got to continue to understand. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yazzie. Additional information, other your comments there. Shananda, committee members, comments, questions.
Chairman Kalen.
Honorable Kalen Begay, you have the floor.
Chairman, RDC member. Good morning. Kodo email office. Good morning. I guess it's just a matter of providing the request in writing to move forward. I have been saying this all along. That's as much as I can say. I have been bugging Department of Justice. What that the Queen Bahanasi Halit our Region 9 then or Atlantic you ask because when is it time for the Navajo Nation to say that Kwajib Ataki Hatit Ato E Koto Satoya and Tiniki and here? Ben hot eat a hit our Epen need Nestodle the Queen English need call or what this Kada Kunana Opayana need Kitoa Kuna Hoto Dona Hoto Nekatasto. A coco the legislation Niki Ben Nizako. As you know, that DOJ, I don't know if they're on the line. A coco, as you know, that Sato Ichanaga, and I can say that on record. Our own Navajo Department of Justice, the way it's structured, out of the litigation which I done with this few trustee that we have, this uranium mine, the hot ahaki the snow, the creed shimbahanasi, so the no ohorjish. A coco codo office in Nietzsche. Lana Danizan, the art of the Sikiki, when he could be based on the clinical leadership, clinical Diego Epides, Nishigit, a coco, Ashid Etaben, Kodo legislation, a past daily congressional hearing adults, Nick Etati, need. A Monday and Dabin, Washington, the Benetanates, Asahan, Nan, Stats to Ade.
But then I don't want my picture.
Coco, chairman, RDC member. Coco, the congressional hearing, Nikki a petition culture, and I like Senator Kelly and Congressman O'Halloran, they're all very much interested, and the sooner the better, totally. But obviously, it's going to be sometime next year. Koko, that we really need to make it the forefront. And I always say, Koto, Otope. Just to flash our name or just or lapahaton hito eight the job that lan shortanizi even go hadit out the yego to the public keep it because we need the public's help on a lot of these issues that we have the situation on the Navajo Nation. But the Yego, I'm not sure how many is online and how much of this information will be disseminated to the public. Chairman, I believe somebody's intentionally interrupting. I hear somebody typing again.
Okay, the presenters and then the listening audience. Let's be mindful that we're having a meeting here, Resource and Development Committee. So as the presiding chair, I would ask the listening audience to be mindful and be respectful. Edith, your phones, they need to be on mute so that there's little distractions. The speaker, and then otherwise, Mr. Tahi, I believe you can mute callers that don't have their phones on mute and are, just maybe not intentionally. So you can be muted. Can you proceed, Mr. Honorable Begay?
Chairman, here at Nando, the reasons and the Nalaya Hatsi Koko Joy Oshita that's what I do a lot of time. Just listen in and trying to get as much information as I can to help out. Maybe a direction specifically, maybe give the documents to me. This is our recommendation that we need to move forward in this fashion. The other thing too is legislative council. There's 3 times could renegotiate in the settlement the key to create change everything. And I did propose to drop a legislation to have at least a certain the management of this particular situation on the Navajo Nation. The key has showed on here. But Bahonet Zanit Art Sinhot on the Shiki what are 8 least create the shadini. Although the how these offices are related, and that's the other thing. I think the division director, the EPA director, maybe it I did a sound under one wing on that. The purpose of this particular program, the key has show I see him dot so show a sato that initial list. To need to so that a question that so could not uncle so could restructure and alia go that but ask so that a question ani the attorney got out in the Toyego Apeti Nista. For when go maybe the committee really needs to make a move to put it in writing to get this in motion to get things done. Although based upon go back to Region 9 or that the US EPA other infrastructure that based on that kita to either the things that top the debt or the things that top based on the dot out and that for the overall positions of the Navajo Nation and asking for funding. For the AML, I know that they've been helping us as far as in some areas like the tour that and I know they're part of the another effort that we're dealing with, which is watershed.
e aja kudo sato hut ano so sato ya hada sato yin dadnish go out bit bashnish. Just recently we had a meeting with the United States Army Corps of Engineering. That ego sato huge they're very capable in helping the nation. We have a lot of capable individuals, programs, but it's just the fact that we really don't provide them sufficient resource and funding to be at the level of really helping the Navajo Nation of what's needed. There is a moratorium, but a lot of time I think the council can move forward in how we feel it's best fits in helping the nation move forward. I mean, sometimes it's like the another branch telling another branch how to run how to do their work. I think there's a line where we needs to do our job and then have the other branch take over and do what needs to be done in their capacity of being an elected official. When he could be his own based on that ko e hot ego ko sato ko akipe his on la hoda andon nito ito da based on not the us that will resolve a lot of these situations. So HND Kudo Chairman, if you could ask the presenters that specifically what will resolve the situation and what will resolve in moving forward on this particular effort. The quick machine could like the like with all nila drenage needs so it is with us chairman. So again, there's a lot of areas that I will continue to move forward with. There's a lot of areas that we continue to have interest in discussing. So it's just a matter of providing it in writing and forwarding to the oversight committee or through the division director to make that request. So Chairman.
Hey, thank you, to the Honorable Gay for your comments there, although with some recommendations included. So if the presenters can start thinking and formulating some steps that are a little bit more definitive. I know you're seeking the support, the guidance, leadership of the oversight committee here. So if you can, be, I know you're proactive in that, but something more definitive, Honorable Brigade. So to start, taking steps towards the goal that is mentioned here, the effort to resolve the funding situations. Before I turn it back to the presenters, Chairman Otto Soto, Chairman So, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I don't presenters. This is a very good topic, and that really shows the work that I guess the program wants to take on. And a lot of these things were supposed to be at the responsibility of entities that mine the Navajo Nation many years ago. And whenever the Navajo leadership at the time agreed to those terms and conditions is what we are really that's hurting us now, and that's allowing how the situation is. Some of these abandoned mines out there, they're not reclaimed yet. But I'm glad that there's a there's a funding source that is there that can allow this. And at the end, the Navajo Nation, although funds were set aside by other agencies, it sounds like we're going to end up doing this. But you spoke to the turnover, and you spoke to the amount of people that worked there for many years, and the expertise that's there at the abandoned mine. And you alluded to losing 80 years worth of knowledge because of losing 3 management positions. And I believe this is where vital things are very important in the advocacy of the program to the administration. And I know you guys work directly for the president, under the executive branch. But the advocacy to try to hold on to these positions is very, very key. And this, if I were in that capacity, those 3 positions wouldn't have been there, but been gone. If the nation needed to fund this, we would have tried to fund this thing. But we are losing these positions, and how are we holding on to these historical information that's there right now with employees there? Because they have the information there. And then the other is the turnover. We know that what is the cause of the turnover on the nation? And because to retain these employees, these specified positions, is very, very important. Because abandoned mine position is just not a position where a person walking out for, you have to have a certain degree in order to have that expertise now. Whether it's at a AA degree or a 4-year degree or a master's. How are you working on the workforce, and what has been the trend on on the hiring process right now? Have you, if you look at your current job vacancy listing, are you putting a dent in trying to hire these positions? Because if you're not getting the trade here on Navajo, maybe we need to change some of the policies pertaining to these experts that require the expertise position, and maybe opening it up to the world. Maybe we can start having because we need to get these expertise and have that workforce there so that we can try to have these areas taken care of for the nation. If we cannot fulfill these positions at this time, what's wrong? Scholarship. The nation is really not bringing back these people, because we're exporting our natural resources off the nation, and that is our children. People in the STEM field, the engineers, the architects, the scientists, and so forth. To try to make this recruitment, because we need this. And if we cannot fill these positions, I think we need to open these few positions to the outside, so that maybe we can get these individuals to be hired, so that they can be employed by the nation to help assist on the reclamation of our coal mines and our uranium abandoned mines. So, and I was going to request for some documents, and I wouldn't find it in Rodney's email or invite. So all the information is there. I was going to request that information be forwarded to me by the program, but I got it. But yeah, also.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. So, presenters, Ms. Bedoni and Mr. Yazzie, These are two sets of comments and questions from the leadership here. If you can respond, time you have the floor.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair. I wanted to answer some of the questions that were there in regards to Honorable Begay's recommendations. We will be having a work group meeting with Navajo EPA, Navajo AML, a DNR, Division of Natural Resources in January to discuss how we can improve on our services and working in better communication and collaboration. The turnover as far as staffing is concerned that we mentioned, that's more on the through the cooperative agreements. We work with the U.S. Department of Energy's legacy management. And this is a sub-recipient contractor that assists in the monitoring and maintenance of the AUM sites. And with this group is where the high turnover is. We constantly have different team leaders, team management leaders from LM that are constantly being replaced, new people coming in. So it's difficult to continue our services and avoid that break in services. And we are wanting to develop our capacity as far as the technical aspects and having a program that is that's under the Navajo Nation. And we eventually would like to assume the responsibilities from DOE LM. And then, that would enable us to provide these services at the local level and with Navajo employees. And the other thing is that the fund management plans that we have before you today, these fund management plans will also enable us to start working cooperatively with the other agencies like Navajo EPA, and accessing those funds through the settlements. This will also enable us to start coming to the table together and looking at the scope of work and what activities that need to be completed in regards to these sites. So we are open to looking at restructuring. That is something we know that it's something that we should consider. And it is a part of our strategic plan moving forward. That was something that we are also looking at. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bedoni, for the response. Honorable Begay, any follow-up there?
Chair Shanad, this is Belinda Shirley. May I have a moment too? Thank you.
Question is Ms. Shirley. Shahid, Honorable Begay, I want to know if he has a follow-up. Then we can also request the same of Delegate Honorable Aruso. Honorable Begay.
Chairman, Chairman, Hernandez. I don't know how to see again. Not so litigation. Abisazino listato. an overall comprehensive approach. What ego go equado baby nash age shot it all up nothing put on when he don't need it all up babby that the list to have need all this change so isn't it what I or abandon
mine yanda clean abandon.
Okay, Agustin, thank you. Go ahead, proceed.
Chairman, that's it.
Agustin, so thank you, Honorable Begay. Honorable Aruso. Yes, Lord.
Thank you very much. The other is that as the term was made, assume the Navajo Nation to assume responsibility from the AUM or UMTRA. And President Russell Begay, I think so. Yeah, signed that isla. And is there a clause? Is a waiver of sovereign immunity? Well, is that going to be something that Abandoned Mine will be bringing to the Navajo Nation Council, because of some requirements of due to assuming those responsibilities and accepting those funds. Usually, they do that. Based on and when they give us that responsibility, there's usually an issue pertaining to the, and it speaks to the technical support. Do we really have it? AML, do you really think that you all have that technical support to have the professionals to assist us during the time of these reclamations? Because I think if we continue to keep the federal government responsible for these things, because that way when they do their work and so forth, we can make sure that they do the process pertaining to what the federal law is. You look at the tribal process, you look at the SAS, the 164 process, Shabiza. Documents sit at Department of Justice, documents sit at OOC, or documents sit at other programs for months. And I just don't know why these directors and programs don't push these documents, because none. And that's my thought of it. And or should we allow a tribal enterprise to hold these responsibilities, because the tribal enterprise are really not subjected to the tribal process. Abandoned Mine, you're subjected to the tribal process. And how do you think that you're gonna be able to get these things through, to navigate through the process? Because when some goes through that 164, all the divisions are somebody may wake up on the wrong side of the bed one day and not want to sign off on a certain document. I had one document sit at Department of Justice for 60 days. 60 days. Not open, or it wasn't document, it wasn't even open and reviewed. Now the 60th day when I checked up on it, and they said, "Oh, we got it. We haven't opened it up," and they blamed the other program. So even how does Abandoned Mine plan to navigate through the 164 to try to find a way to streamline these process? Or is there a dialogue between the administration that they really want to streamline the 164 process? So because like I said, it's going to take time for the hiring process. Like DPM, documents sit at DPM for the hiring process, and it's not you know, a request is made. So,
You, Chairman, so for your comments and questions again, Ms. Bedoni, you have a response to that, those questions, those comments?
Yes, thank you, Honorable Vice Chair. Thank you, Honorable, so for your comments. And as far as looking at assuming responsibility, that is something we're looking at long-term. Working with the 164 process and the internal processes, it is very difficult. We're hopeful that if we receive direct funding, that it will help alleviate a lot of the issues we deal with in processing our grants. For instance, we have multiple grants that come in each year, and at different times, maybe they allocate like up to 4 different times per quarter. Right now, we have more than 20 accounts just trying to manage these multiple grants that are coming through. So the intent is that we're hopeful that if we receive direct funding at an annual allocation, it would really alleviate a lot of the issues that we're dealing with in the financial process. So that's the reasoning behind perhaps even going to assuming responsibilities. I should maybe back up and at least say that we would like to at least first get direct funding, maybe through a programmatic agreement, because it is quite stressful in managing these multiple accounts, and staff that are online, I'm pretty sure can provide more information to that. But that's the reasoning behind, wanting to assume that responsibility. And of course, that would also help in building capacity and to demonstrate that, a Navajo Nation is capable of assuming those responsibilities. Right now, we're doing the task orders for DOE-LM, whereas maybe we should be having DOE-LM do the task orders just to make sure that they're in line with the unique needs and challenges of Navajo Nation. So that's the thinking behind that. And as far as one question I failed to answer previously is the historical information and how is that being kept. Also, that is a part of our strategic planning moving forward, and that involves records, and we have a wealth of information that we would like to have accessible in future planning and research in regards to abandoned mines and AUMs. So that's a huge push for us this year. We're going to start making copies of all the documents of maintenance activities, previous activities on these sites. We're wanting to digitize them and start creating a database. And in the future, we'd like to have a dashboard to where different agencies and departments can access that data. So thank you very much. That's all I have. I'm not sure if staff would like to add as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bedoni, for the responses, yourself and your staff that are on this call. Although we have the EPA Director, Linda Shirley. She, you have the floor, Ms. Shirley.
Shana, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, Yad Ebene, Shana, Chair Walker, Ado, Shana, P. Allen, Ado, Honorable Herman Daniels, Shachado, Shana, Ado, Honorable Mark Freeland, and Ashaha to Delegate Stewart. Honorable Delegate, thank you for your prayer. Abindan. Nakatadin Sazingi Bahe, Winzenstal. Shanat Ani Anos Tosha Quagi Shahos Aigi. Ado Quagi Shik Enosini. Ko Miss Bedoni, Ado Shiaj, Mr. Yazi, Ado Gilberto. Anot Ehyat Ehebene, Ado Adet Dine, Nos Angi Stoyat, and Hidini Doles. When I first started with Navajo EPA as a remedial project manager, I had sites up in the Lukajagay Mountains, and it was actually Mr. Yazi and Gilbert that showed me where my sites were at, and they educated me, and they took care of me while I was out there. So I'm thankful to Mr. Yazi and Gilbert and to AML for their help in that way. And how would you say, whatever information they have, esto hashin sago yadad leto nantinigi esto opeda halodo do yadan chinda so ako kwegi ehapedini doles to AML for their support to me and their support to Navajo EPA. And from my position or my position here with the Navajo EPA, my intent is to support AML. And just like Mr. Yazi said, a lot of the work that AML did in the beginning to reclaim and to inventory, that is the work that Navajo EPA is building, continuing to build on. So a lot of what we have here, it would not have been possible without the work of AML. So we acknowledge that from Navajo EPA. And I just wanted to say that we do, Ms. Bedoni and I have been having discussions, and then from Navajo EPA, we do provide some degree of support. When they met with their Department of Energy Legacy Management, we do have a letter that followed up asking for that direct funding as well too. So I just wanted to say, Shanat Ani do Kwegishik Enosini, that from Navajo EPA, we're certainly here and that we do support AML and their efforts in not helping us, but also the Navajo people out there. And then I also wanted to offer as well too, that on January 3rd, Navajo EPA has a work session scheduled, and wanted to say that we're open to having AML at our work session with RDC, and we could continue to have these discussions too. So I wanted to offer that as well too. And then on January 4th, when we're doing our Navajo abandoned uranium mine updates, I do have AML on the agenda to provide any updates as well too. So
Thank you, Ms. Shirley, Director of Navajo EPA. Ado shite jefe. Nahain yahakidon yitahenzi ki shehe. Earlier, I asked if the division director, Shinda, Dr. Shabala, if he has comments on the subject here this morning. We were seeing overview in Halia.
Oh, yeah, she
other challenges, other recommendations, and then leadership committee members and colleagues. I think other questions are the Asha, the so Tahiti need Kunza Jishiko. Ado Benaba Johan Aniki Navigiati, Ido Adena Shin as Anahalji committee meeting. So Dr. Shabala question, nada we did a bigatan iki a kweta military artisananta.
Hakoshi here Shitsula Thomas Walker Otto and the Chairman Ricky Nez RDC Otto and the Shanala Key Allen Bicky Otto Shatna Ash Herman Daniels Otto Adolf Tyson Sagi Yat Ancient Edition Otto and the Kodo AML ni dato chon ian ni da ni kaigi ni aban de do dash ni shdo stand di na nishkat ni da ni kaigi I da ban das bande hat shish a koko hashin so an leden peso a hadat nit ko Ade Robert Allen, DNR Principal Attorney, we're getting him to join the call. Hashin so Fund Management Plan, Yinash AML Department, Do Navajo Nation EPA Division, Dan Hiyi Kate, quite the Queen Haida, Oliver Hoyley, that's a done ako ita after a peso tati no ako alkaati was tati no chunda and junago chahate zito junago ya del kikwa pinna hahoya ni thania ara apelo ash appointment the nebich can't miss Navajo but la sadly ita she does a shinji neshitsela ara kwa anti thnan shloro nes nadago ya Navajo Nation EPA with the Division Director Belinda Shirley a compagit DNR the Principal Attorney Robert Allen ni tratos because on later in nishasto the Vice President need Slate up with Benacha Hall one door a cat cater hat inigi a bit bedate it's a limp bit at all not do lesigi bit a bit ebony yet a sahit lesson and a cornana sahodas and on net a that the no band that need in Shadow Belinda Shirley or the Vice President a ajita hikagi a she nes nadago contash with all this. Accordo yat eto ado dasanala odo so yat ni trahun lodo his hun lodo nhapanan esto accord ado the was a bit in o canto yat eko nahat agido saton nisliki etan hini kedo leshananta resource development committee dan no senigi aro na nishin nasto ito anile the nebekeya ho ta hois o yi slet sahata skedeko a compass na has aro kon keya bista hoti is aro hashin sogo the neke da hat inigi sto aro beta dol na do ashi eda benina nasni no on head o nasni ta needs ako hashin sako needs an ni hidden epid need de deepets ato ako yego hite do yego bahas chiko nanish has ako the don the AML department there's a EGC banana shite in the tota ne around the tweaky that is in the day let around that set that around the big do they don't nishta and the yield ko yin nish around Navajo Nation EPA do hot nasla ako the two division of natural resources do Navajo Nation Environmental Protection Agency. That Washington, that Environmental Protection Agency. Esto isn't that bandit, ako hashin so a person had it ako ein haban sada cancellation and no siniki do ahon sora do this daro here.
You, Dr. Chabala. It's a Hensiki. Do Hikunlo. Oh, she, committee members, Namsha, comments and questions to the presentation. So that's the idea to do for that. But it's just a need to know about the Mr. Tahi, our advisor, he did possible follow-ups. You give us an idea of what that can be for the committee, if there's to be follow-ups, timelines, and those kinds of opportunities for the committee to follow up on the fund management plan development and to make sure that some of the issues discussed here are addressed.
Chair members of RDC, two legislations have already been dropped off and is currently in the process on these two management plans. Delegate Freeland is a sponsor on these two management plans that are being discussed. We can have another follow-up discussion on these two documents that are making its way through the legislative process. I would have to look at the calendar to see when another time could be perfect to this. As of now, your December calendar is pretty packed. We can try to do another one of these follow-ups on Thursday, December 23rd at 8 a.m. again, right before your NABI committee meeting starts, so we can continue to address these issues before the legislation undergoes its 5-day comment period. At the moment, I believe the legislation is currently with Ms. Tapahi at the moment. And as everyone is well aware of, OLC is pretty swamped right now with all its legislation requests and the backlogs, as well as there's not enough attorneys in the office to meet the demands of all these legislations that are currently being requested. So my recommendation would be, if RDC wants to continue this discussion, December 23rd would be best at 8 a.m. again. Back to you, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Tahi. Committee members, we do have some opportunities to come back together and take up the two fund management plans, in addition to discuss also other related issues, concerns that were mentioned this morning in the presentations. But other than working with the sponsor those legislations which are still being drafted, although Mr. Freeland requests, the leadership meeting on the legislations. Committee members, any other questions, comments? If not, then we have up to next week, next RDC meeting to determine whether we should have schedule another leadership meeting. The committee has the ability to set or schedule these meetings. Any other comments and questions? we know the Navi meeting, though, scheduled to start, though, as we speak here.
Okay. I wanted to make one last comment, Jay. That's good.
Okay, Honorable Freeman, go ahead.
Thank you, Shanant. I appreciate the presentation and going forward as far as AML and UMTRA is concerned, and with the discussion related to Tronics and Navajo EPA. And let's just keep in mind, Shanant, my colleagues, that Navajo EPA and AML are two separate programs with two separate objectives. And I think that's something we need to remind ourselves from time to time, is that they each have their own specific way or work that is it's not the same, or it's not comparable. One is specifically for environmental work, environmental protection, and then the other one, of course, focuses on abandoned mines and reclamation. So I think we just need to be remindful of that, and reminded that they have two separate objectives and two separate, completely different programs. Shananta, and I just wanted to say that because of how this fund management plan is how vital it's gonna be to this program. And I'm in support of the going after some of that Tronics money and working with EPA. We just got to figure out how to best get that done, and if we got to come to mediation with Navajo EPA or US EPA, whomever. And I know US EPA is overseeing the Tronics money, but how are we going to take that first step to get the attention of US EPA, saying, you know what, we have a program over here that can do the work but needs some resources. So Che, I just want to mention that this my thinking and my thoughts for this morning as we conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Freeland, for the information, reminding leadership here. Committee members, staff, although again, thank you, the presenters, Ms. Bedoni.
Mr. Chair, this is Laureline with OLC. May I?
I think Office of Legislative Counsel attorney wants to get the floor here. Hakushi, you had the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to mention that I have prepared two draft legislations for the two proposed funding plans establishing of these enterprise funds for AML, and I have provided those to the presenter and also to Karen Bedoni, and I do need their assistance to complete the draft. It's pretty much 90% complete, both drafts of legislation. I just need to make sure that my exhibits are in order, and also I need to check the language. I need someone to check the language regarding the establishment of the fund, how that would work, and I haven't drafted legislation actually establishing a fund before, so I could really use their assistance right away. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Tapahi, for the information, and if you're reaching out to the program, to the department. Committee so if there are no other questions, comments at this time, we can wrap this up. We can close the session here. Presenters, everyone on the call. Any other announcements at this time, Mr. Tapai or Tahi.
The chair, Vice Chair Walker, members of RDC, no, I don't have no additional announcements at this time. Back to you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Hakushing, we're going to close this session here, this leadership meeting. Though, yeah, everyone for your participation. Although we will be going to the next meeting, which is the Navikiati Committee meeting. Everyone be safe out there and everyone have a good day. And I'm signing off. Hakushing.